Welcome back to the channel, USA Coins 69, another exciting journey into the world of coins, where everyday change can sometimes hold the key to unexpected fortune. Today, we're diving deep into the story of the United States Washington quarter dollar from the year 1991. At first glance, it might seem like just another quarter that's passed through countless hands at grocery stores, gas stations, and vending machines. But what many don't realize is that some of these coins, depending on their condition, rarity, or special features, can carry immense value. Stay with me all the way through, because the story of the 1991 Washington quarter is not only fascinating but could also put you on the path to spotting a life-changing treasure. The Washington quarter is one of the most iconic coins in U.S. history. It was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Originally intended to be a one-year commemorative coin, it was so popular that it became a permanent part of American coinage. The design, created by John Flanagan, featured a detailed profile of the nation's first president, and over the decades, it became a symbol of stability and continuity. By the time we reached 1991, the Washington quarter had been in circulation for nearly 60 years, serving not just as money but as a constant reminder of America's founding father. The year 1991 itself was a transitional time in American life. The Cold War had just come to an end, the Gulf War was beginning, and the U.S. economy was shifting into a new era. In the world of coins, the Washington quarter was still carrying Flanagan original design, but collectors knew that within a decade, the mint would be introducing the famous State Quarters program, which would change the look of the quarter forever. That makes the 1991 Washington quarter one of the last in its long traditional design run before this historic change. Let's take a closer look at the design details. On the obverse, you'll see George Washington's profile facing left. His hair, tied back in a ribbon, is sharply engraved, symbolizing both dignity and leadership. The inscriptions include Liberty at the top, In God We Trust to the left, and the date, 1991, at the bottom. Just beside the ribbon in Washington's hair, you'll find the mint mark, either a P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, or an S for San Francisco. That little letter makes a big difference, as certain mint marks are far rarer than others. On the reverse side of the 1991 quarter, you'll see the familiar heraldic eagle, wings outstretched in power, clutching arrows and olive branches. This design, which had been used since 1932, represents America's strength and its desire for peace, balanced with readiness to defend itself. The inscriptions United States of America and E Pluribus Unum appear above the eagle, with quarter dollar boldly displayed at the bottom. For many collectors, this classic eagle reverse is one of the most beautiful designs in U.S. coinage, and the 1991 issue is a late example of this long-running style before it was retired. Now, what makes the 1991 Washington quarter valuable? The answer lies in condition, rarity, and minting errors. Most 1991 quarters that have circulated heavily are worth only face value. They are common, and you can still find them in change today. But a coin that has been carefully preserved, never circulated, and graded by a professional service as mint state or even proof can be worth significantly more. Coins with high grades showing brilliant luster and no scratches or wear are the ones collectors pay top dollar for. Even more exciting are the error coins. Sometimes mistakes occur during the minting process, and instead of being destroyed, these unusual coins slip into circulation. Examples include double die errors, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or even coins struck on the wrong type of blank. For the 1991 Washington quarter, these rare minting errors can transform a coin from ordinary pocket change into an extraordinary collector's item worth thousands, and let's not forget proof coins. In 1991, proof quarters were struck at the San Francisco Mint with mirror-like finishes, specially made for collectors. These coins never entered circulation and were sold in proof sets. A pristine proof 1991 S quarter can command much higher prices, especially if it has been graded a perfect 70 by a certification service. So now, the moment you've been waiting for. How much could a 1991 Washington quarter really be worth if you happen to have one of the rarest, best preserved examples? While most are worth only 25 cents, a flawless, high-grade coin or one with a dramatic minting error can sell for truly astonishing sums. In fact, some of these special 1991 Washington quarters have been known to reach as high as $100,000, yes, that's right, $100,000 for a single quarter dollar. Imagine holding a coin that most people would use to buy a candy bar, only to realize it's actually worth as much as a luxury car or even a house down payment. That's the magic of coin collecting, hidden treasures disguised as ordinary change, waiting for someone sharp-eyed enough to recognize them. Today, let's take a journey back to 1979, a year when the United States Mint produced millions of Washington quarters. At first glance, they look just like any other coin, with George Washington's proud profile on the obverse and the majestic eagle perched with wings spread on the reverse. But when you start looking closely, you'll discover that certain mint marks, striking errors, and unique varieties from 1979 can make one of these coins worth far more than its face value, and in some rare cases, turn an everyday coin into a life-changing discovery. The Washington quarter has a long history, first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington. Over the decades, the design remained relatively consistent until the state quarters program in 1999. But during the late 1970s, millions of these coins poured out of the mints in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each mint location left its own mark on the coin, quite literally. If you take a close look under Washington's neck on the obverse side, you'll notice a tiny letter, P, D, or S. That mint mark, which many people ignore, can make a huge difference in determining how much your coin could be worth. For the 1979 quarter, the Philadelphia Mint struck coins without any mint mark, Denver coins carry the D, and San Francisco produced proof coins with the S mint mark. While the majority of these coins circulate at face value, some collectors are on the hunt for well-preserved examples, those that escaped scratches, wear, and years of handling. Coins that remained in pristine condition, known as mint state, can fetch a significant premium. Imagine pulling out a coin from your change jar, shining like new even though it's been around for more than 4 decades. That could be worth much more than 25 cents. What makes certain 1979 quarters especially valuable are the errors and varieties that came out of the minting process. Errors are unintentional mistakes, like double strikes, off-center strikes, or coins struck on the wrong type of planchet, that slip past inspection and end up in circulation. For collectors, these errors are like hidden gems. A double die obverse, where Washington's portrait or the inscriptions show doubling, can make the coin highly desirable. Off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing because the coin wasn't properly aligned during minting, are also highly collectible. Some 1979 quarters have even been discovered struck on planchets meant for other denominations, like nickels, which makes them incredibly rare and exciting to find. Proof coins from San Francisco tell another interesting story. These were not meant for circulation but for collectors, made with highly polished dies that give them a mirror-like surface. If you happen to find one of these proof quarters in your change, it might have slipped out of someone's collection. While not every proof coin is worth a fortune, flawless examples graded at the highest levels can bring impressive sums in auctions. Collectors are always eager to secure the best of the best, and when demand meets rarity, the value skyrockets. Condition, rarity, and demand are the 3 key factors that turn a regular 1979 quarter into something extraordinary. Collectors use a grading scale to judge a coin's state, ranging from heavily worn, good condition to nearly perfect, mint state. The sharper the details, the fewer the scratches, and the more original luster a coin has, the higher the grade. And the higher the grade, the higher the value. Think of it like finding a car from 1979 that looks brand new. It would fetch far more than a rusty one that's been through decades of rough use. The same applies to coins. Now imagine this: somewhere out there, a lucky collector found a Washington quarter from 1979 with the right combination of rarity, condition, and desirability. This wasn't just any quarter, it was a coin that stood out above the millions produced that year, one that caught the attention of serious buyers. At auction, it commanded an unbelievable price that left everyone stunned. The final sale reached an astonishing $90,000, proving that even a humble quarter dollar can hold unimaginable value when rarity and demand come together. Today we're diving into the world of the Washington quarter dollar from 1967, a coin that might look like any other 25-cent piece, but in reality, it has stories of history, rarity, and incredible value that can make collectors' hearts race. To understand why the 1967 quarter is so fascinating, we have to go back in time to the mid-1960s. Just a few years earlier, the United States Mint made a massive change to its coinage. Up until 1964, quarters were made of 90% silver, but rising silver prices forced the government to switch to a copper-nickel-clad composition starting in 1965. For collectors, this was a major shift, and it changed the entire face of American coinage. In 1965, 1966, and 1967, another unusual thing happened: mint marks were completely removed from coins. That's right, no matter where the coin was made, whether in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, there was no little letter on the obverse side under Washington's bust. This was done deliberately by the mint to discourage hoarding and collecting during a time of transition. That means every 1967 quarter you find will look the same in terms of mint mark, but don't let that fool you into thinking they're all worthless. In fact, 1967 Washington quarters are packed with stories of hidden treasures. While hundreds of millions were struck that year, only a small fraction survived in pristine condition. Most of them went through years of circulation, collecting scratches, dings, and wear. But the rare ones that were carefully preserved, never released into circulation, or struck in special sets have become highly sought after today. The U.S. Mint produced something called Special Mint Sets, or SMS coins, in 1967. These coins were intended as collector pieces and are often much shinier, with stronger details and sometimes even cameo-like finishes that make them stand out. An SMS quarter in flawless condition can fetch an impressive premium compared to a regular worn example you'd find in change, but what really excites collectors are the errors and unique varieties. Error coins are like little accidents in history that slipped through the mint's quality control. In 1967, with such a high production volume, several fascinating mistakes were made. There are quarters struck off-center, where part of the design is missing. There are double-die examples, where inscriptions or images appear doubled, making the coin instantly unusual. There are even cases where coins were struck on the wrong planchets, like dime or nickel blanks, which makes them stand out dramatically. Imagine stumbling across one of these in your pocket change. It would be like finding buried treasure in plain sight. The design itself is classic and timeless. On the obverse side, you'll see George Washington, the first President of the United States, with the word Liberty above his head and the date 1967 below. On the reverse, the powerful eagle with wings spread proudly symbolizes strength and freedom. Millions of Americans grew up with this design in their hands daily, but only the sharp-eyed collector realizes that not every quarter is equal. Some carry secrets worth far more than 25 cents. Condition plays a huge role when it comes to value. Coin grading, which ranges from good to mint state and even proof-like or deep cameo, in special cases, determines how much a coin might be worth. A heavily circulated 1967 quarter might just be pocket change, but one in top condition, with crisp details and gleaming luster, can reach astonishing prices in auctions. Collectors will pay a premium for coins that look like they just came off the press yesterday, especially if they show unique characteristics that set them apart from the rest. Now, imagine this: after years of being overlooked, a 1967 Washington quarter surfaced in spectacular condition, a coin that looked nearly flawless with breathtaking details. Combined with its rarity and collector demand, it sparked a bidding war that left even seasoned numismatists amazed. The hammer came down, and this little piece of American history sold for an unbelievable $70,000. Today we're going to uncover the story of the United States Washington quarter dollar from 1971, a coin that seems so simple and common, yet under the right conditions, can be one of the most valuable pieces a collector could ever dream of finding. The Washington quarter has been a staple of American coinage since 1932, when it was first introduced to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. For decades, it carried the same iconic design: Washington's bust on the obverse with the word Liberty above and the motto "In God We Trust" beside him, and the eagle with spread wings on the reverse, clutching arrows with olive branches beneath. By 1971, this design was already firmly ingrained in American life, used in everyday transactions, arcade machines, toll booths, and parking meters across the nation. But what many people don't realize is that this was also a fascinating period in U.S. coinage history. You see, in 1971 the mint was still producing quarters in the copper-nickel-clad composition, which had replaced silver in 1965. This was a direct result of the rising price of silver, which made it impossible for the government to continue striking quarters with 90% silver content. The transition brought about a flood of new coins, and quarters from the early 1970s are generally considered common. But as any coin collector knows, the real magic lies in the details, mint marks, conditions, and rare errors that can transform an everyday coin into a small fortune. Mint marks play a key role in identifying where a coin was made. In 1971, Washington quarters could bear either a D for Denver or no mint mark at all, which meant it was produced in Philadelphia. While both facilities struck millions of quarters, not all coins were created equal. Differences in strike quality, die wear, and even simple accidents during minting created unique pieces that stand out to collectors today. For example, some coins from this year show doubling in the inscriptions, giving them a distinct double die appearance. Others may have been struck off-center, with parts of the design missing or misaligned. There are even rare instances where quarters were accidentally struck on planchets intended for other denominations, such as nickel or dime blanks, which instantly makes them incredibly rare and valuable. Another factor that sets certain 1971 quarters apart is their condition. Most quarters from this era were heavily circulated, passing through countless hands for decades, leaving behind scratches, wear, and tarnish. But once in a while, a coin emerges that looks like it has been frozen in time, with sharp details, glossy surfaces, and absolutely no signs of wear. These high-grade coins are the ones that collectors fight over at auctions, because they are so incredibly hard to find. A Washington quarter from 1971 in mint state condition can be worth hundreds, or even thousands, depending on how pristine it is. And if that same coin has a rare error or unique striking feature, the value can skyrocket. The beauty of the Washington quarter is in its timeless design and symbolism. George Washington's portrait on the obverse represents leadership and independence, a reminder of America's founding values. The eagle on the reverse, wings spread with both arrows and olive branches, reflects strength balanced with peace. These symbols have resonated with generations of Americans, and for collectors, owning a quarter in perfect condition is like holding a piece of history that embodies the spirit of the nation. Stories of valuable finds are what inspire collectors to keep searching. Imagine coming across an old jar of coins, sifting through what looks like ordinary pocket change, and suddenly realizing you're holding something extraordinary. That's the thrill of numismatics, never knowing what surprise might be waiting in the next handful of coins. And now comes the part that excites every collector: the value. A rare Washington quarter from 1971, struck in the right condition, with all the unique qualities that collectors dream of, once crossed the auction block and stunned everyone. That single coin, a simple 25-cent piece to the untrained eye, sold for an astonishing $74,000. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into one of those fascinating coins, the Washington quarter dollar from 1994. At first glance, it might look like any other quarter, but when you understand its history, its design, its rare varieties, and what collectors are willing to pay, you'll never look at spare change the same way again. Let's start with the background of the 1994 Washington quarter. By this time, the Washington quarter had already been in circulation for more than 60 years. First introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, the design became so beloved that it stayed in use for decades, far longer than originally intended. By 1994, Americans were still seeing the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse side, and the eagle standing proudly on the reverse, a design that represented strength, liberty, and resilience. Even though the coin was just an everyday item to most people, to collectors it was a continuation of an important chapter in American coinage history. By the mid-1990s, all Washington quarters were made of copper-nickel clad, a change that had begun in 1965 after the mint stopped producing silver quarters due to rising silver prices. While silver quarters have a natural collectible appeal, copper-nickel-clad coins like those from 1994 are often overlooked, until you consider the role of condition, mint marks, and errors. That's when things start to get interesting. Mint marks play a big role in identifying where coins were struck. In 1994, quarters could come from Philadelphia, which carried no mint mark, or from Denver, marked with a D, or even from San Francisco, where proof coins were made for collectors and featured an S mint mark. Each mint had its own production qualities, and while most of the quarters from that year were minted in the hundreds of millions, only a select few survived in exceptional condition or with striking errors that make them stand out today. The design itself, while common, has a timeless appeal. On the obverse, Washington's face is dignified, representing America's first president and the foundation of the nation's leadership. The inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" sit alongside his portrait, with the date 1994 below. On the reverse, the eagle is perched powerfully, wings spread, arrows in its talons, and olive branches beneath, an image that conveys both strength and peace. For decades, this design embodied the American spirit, and by 1994, it had become one of the most recognizable images on U.S. coinage. Now, here's where the story becomes exciting. While most 1994 quarters will only ever be worth face value, collectors seek out those rare pieces that are virtually flawless or that carry unique minting errors. Imagine finding a double die obverse, where Washington's features or the inscriptions appear doubled, creating a striking and highly collectible look. Or discovering an off-center strike, where part of the design is missing, instantly making the coin a rarity. There are also examples of quarters struck on the wrong metal planchets, like being struck on a dime blank, which makes them completely unique. These are the kinds of details that can turn an everyday coin into something extraordinary. Condition, of course, is everything. A 1994 quarter that has been in circulation for decades, rattling around in pockets and drawers, will usually have scratches, nicks, and wear. These are fun to find, but they're not what drives big collector value. The real treasures are the coins that were either preserved in mint rolls, collector sets, or proof sets, keeping them in pristine condition for decades. Coins graded at the highest levels, mint state or even proof with deep cameo contrast, are the ones that fetch impressive prices. Collectors are drawn to the 1994 Washington quarter not just because it's part of the beloved series but because of these rare instances where quality and error combine to make something exceptional. Auction houses have seen these coins reach levels that most people would never imagine for a simple quarter. And this is where the story reaches its most thrilling point. One such Washington quarter dollar from 1994, preserved in breathtaking condition and carrying qualities that made it stand out among millions, sold for an unbelievable sum. When the final bid was called, that single coin, an ordinary 25-cent piece to most, was valued at an astounding $79,000. Think about that for a moment. A coin that many people wouldn't even notice, one that countless hands may have passed over, turned out to be worth tens of thousands of dollars. It's stories like these that keep collectors searching through pocket change, coin rolls, and old jars of coins tucked away in attics. The thrill is real, the chance that something extraordinary is hiding right in front of you. So the next time you're about to drop a quarter into a machine or leave one on the counter as change, stop and take a closer look. Check the date, study the details, and pay attention to the condition. Because what seems ordinary to most could actually be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. That's the beauty of coin collecting. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary and proves that history and value can be found in the smallest places.